Welcome, everyone, to this week's edition of Inside the GM Studio, a podcast all about the tabletop RPG hobby. I'm your host, Matt.
I am David.
And we're back talking about all things gaming coming up. There is news, but I'm going to leave that probably until next week. Let it build up. There's a lot of things that are coming out. A lot of news is happening and a lot of things that to talk about for everyone that I hope you want to hear. Our game yesterday, David and I were just talking about, not much really happened. More over, we were just having a good time amongst, I guess, IRL, as the kids say. Laughs a minute because of drunken shenanigans. Again, in IRL. I can't say in IRL. That's the I in IRL is in.
It's like an ATM machine or pin number. Yeah. Yeah.
But sorry, I had to take a drink there. And please excuse me, anyone out there. I am just getting over a sinus infection, so if I sound kind of weird or if I go into a coughing fit, I'm sorry.
You always sound kind of weird, and you always got some excuse.
Yeah, exactly.
Some excuse.
That's so all I got from the game yesterday. It was fun until towards the end, where Cody was just continued to say everyone was a doppelganger, and where it was funny at first, it was getting to that point where it's just like, yeah, okay, it sounds like we're about done. His speech got to the part where it was just like, yeah, we should just stop now.
Yeah, he was. At first, I was like, is he drunk? And then I was like, yeah, he's probably pretty loaded. I mean, I'm not going to say that I haven't done that before. I know I have been too drunk to play at a certain point. Overall, though, it felt like we were due for kind of like a dialogue-heavy role-playing session. I don't mind those every now and again. I think they kind of help recalibrate the players, and get you a little used to talking in character. And you're right, not a lot of plot happened. There was a little bit of like exposition, character development stuff, and I think that's okay for one short session where we might be delving into that, and now we're getting into more plot-driven things. Obviously, you need lower energy portions of an adventure to kind of set up the more plot-driven elements of an adventure. Otherwise, they tend to kind of ring hollow when you're just having like plot point, plot point, plot point, plot point, plot point. It's like, okay, you're not really setting up the plot points very well. This one seemed fairly well set up. I tried to kind of establish the stakes and frankly thought we would get through a decent amount more than we did, but the players were kind of running with the ball in the dialogue scenes and everything, and so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna kind of let them do their thing. If we get to where I want to get to, then great, and if we don't, then I'll just take it as an indicator that the players were having an alright time with the role-playing stuff, and that's what happened. Again, we left off on probably like a mid-tier, like not like a super high-intensity cliffhanger, but kind of like a mid cliffhanger, not as low-key as the last one, but a little more intense than the previous cliffhanger, but probably not as intense as the ones that were from the previous adventure. So that's fine. I think it's good to kind of ramp up in intensity as you recalibrate for a new adventure. So I'm liking the way that that's going, and I'm thinking maybe the next session will be the one that we'll finish off before we take a break and switch gears to another game, it seems like. So that's interesting.
Yeah, and oh boy. So today, uh, I was reading a bit of the book of
Mm,
Barbarians of Lemura,
mhm.
and I got into cleaning mode today and started cleaning my entire apartment. And when I do that, I'll usually go on YouTube and I'll just put something on the TV and let it play in the background while I'm cleaning. So I was looking for stuff for Barbarians of Lemura, and I
Sure.
found an actual play and not much else. There wasn't a lot out there, uh, but I listened to the actual play, which
Mhm.
was actually very cool. The people that were running it, the guy that's running it, is a big sword and sorcery fan, first of all, and he really likes bringing in eldritch horrors. Like a lot of the Lovecraft uh, sort of
Mythos.
mythos. There we go, into his games.
Yeah.
So he was doing that with this one. And it was a really good story, and the players were very good. And I realized as I was going through the book and then listening to the actual play that this is the game. This is the type of game that I've been really getting into. It is pretty much a Japanese tabletop RPG.
Yeah.
It's 2d6 plus modifier, which usually comes from your class. You have multiple classes with multiple levels, which you
Yeah.
use to add as your skills, pretty much. And it's not much else other than the only thing that I found that's different instead of you rolling for defense is that you subtract your opponent's defense from your roll.
Um.
The hero
Yeah. There.
points.
There doesn't seem to be. Um. It seems like what I think the best way, again, to kind of not be doing some things in the positive and some things in the negative, the best way to do it, or the best way to think about it, is that if you have a defense of two, the target number to hit someone is nine. So what you do is you just up that target number by the amount of
Mhm.
the defense, rather than being subtracting some things and adding other things. So that's the way I would look at it. Like now, if you have a defense of two, instead of the target number needed to hit you being nine, it's 11,
Mhm.
and that's
Yeah, I was going
um
through that because they were playing on roll 20, and we're going to be playing on roll 20. And when
mhm.
you roll something, it asks just for their defense score in there when you go to roll, but it's negative in the roll script. Um,
Oh, is that how it does it? I
yeah.
didn't know that. Okay.
Um,
Then I guess that's what we'll do if that's what the thing is set up to do.
um, Hero points. I love hero points.
Hmm.
I love easy meta currencies that are just pretty much made for a reroll.
Yeah.
Um, One thing I noticed in Barbarians of Lemura is that you can re-roll because it came up on the actual play I was watching today. In many other games, such as Savage Worlds or trying to think of something else that has a meta currency where you can re-roll. I'm just gonna go with
Um,
Savage Worlds, but I know there's a
Fantasy
couple other
Flight.
maybe, but no, because they don't have a. I was gonna say on a critical fumble, on a critical miss, if you roll two ones on your 2d6,
Hmm.
if you fumble in other games, usually you can't spend your meta currency to re-roll. Oh,
In this game, you can.
yeah, and in Barbarians of Lamura, you can, which I think is always very cool because that just shows you that they are there for the heroic fantasy. They
Hmm.
want you to feel heroic. They want it to feel very cool. Your character can always be cool no matter what.
Hmm.
The only thing I haven't gotten into yet is it bonds and flaws?
It's boons and flaws.
Boons. That's it. Boons and flaws. I haven't
They're
gotten into
actually
those yet.
they're really easy to understand
Mm,
typically. So basically, most of them, all they do is impose a priority die or a disadvantage die, advantage
mm,
or disadvantage. So it's like if you say for instance you take the sneaky boon, then it just says you're particularly good at sneaking. Anytime you would be sneaking, roll 3d6 and take the two highest.
right.
Or you're particularly clumsy as a flaw, for instance, when anytime you would be trying to be stealthy or something, you roll 3d6 and take the two lowest.
Mm,
That's most of them. Some of them have other things that allow you to do different stuff, but mostly it's just advantage or disadvantage die on certain circumstance rolls. That's
mm.
all. So,
Yeah, it's a very simple system.
hmm
Four attributes. much like again going into my JRPGs, tabletop RPGs that I've been doing. Many of them go by the same ones as well: strength, agility, mind. Except this one has, oh fuck, what is it? Now I'm not even gonna remember. It's their version of charisma, but it's also
Appeal.
appeal. It's also
Hmm.
your looks. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. Well,
where I find,
it's just your personal gravitas,
yeah,
your yeah, for lack of a better word, charisma. But there's no wisdom, there's no constitution.
hmm
Your strength and constitution are kind of one and the same. Your dexterity is basically your agility.
hmm
Your mind is a combination of your wisdom and intelligence, and then your appeal is basically what you would call charisma.
yeah, and those are like uh, those are the names that they use a lot. It's become very. Those are like the buzzwords now used in attributes
Hmm.
for out of US games. Agility and mind specifically, they use those two a lot.
Hmm.
Because I don't know, for some reason these days, game developers, they like to put intelligence and wisdom kind of together. Uh,
Yeah.
so in order, and I've seen some people say that there are differences between dexterity and agility. I've seen some games that have both dex and agility.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you could kind of thin slice a lot of this stuff. So
I agree because
technically,
I've thought of it and I said, you know what, they're right. There is a difference between the two.
I mean, technically, yeah, agility is how quickly you move and how nimble you are.
Mm.
Uh, Dexterity would typically involve your hand-eye
Yep.
coordination.
Mm-hmm.
So like you might be good at firing a bow, but but might not have a lot of foot speed. Those could be delineated
Yep.
in the same way that intelligence and wisdom could be delineated. Wisdom is usually just a byproduct of experience and how to apply the things that you've learned over a long arc. And intelligence is just your raw strength of your brain, for lack of a better
Mm-hmm.
word. I always thought of wisdom. Intelligence is like strength for your brain, and wisdom is like constitution for your brain.
Yeah, kind
like
of.
like how much willpower you have and how much you can resist the effects of like spells and shit is usually wisdom based. But how hard your brain hits when it's doing shit is your intelligence. But they could be rolled into each other, or they could be delineated even further. I think four attributes is enough, and they also do. One of the things the Mythic Edition did is made initiative its own ability. It used to just be kind of whoever had the highest agility kind of went first, and then you delineated through a variety of things. But now agility is or I'm sorry, initiative is its own modifier. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
ranged melee, defense, and initiative, or
Yeah.
like the four. Strangely though, from one edition to the other, like they added initiative, but they didn't give you any more points. You still just get 4 points.
Oh,
Now
really?
you have four. Yeah, in the original Barbarians of Lemura,
Mm-hmm.
you had ranged, melee, and defense, and you had
Mm.
4 points to allocate among them. And now they added initiative into that mix of a battle ready stat, and they still just give you 4 points. So it's like I don't know, maybe five's more appropriate, but sure, whatever.
I do like as much as this is very uh old world sword, our old school sword world style.
Hmm.
I'm glad that they didn't decide to go with a damage chart. It's very simple. I saw so far. I didn't get into weapons a lot and damage, but I saw it's like D6 plus modifier, but there's also D6H
High,
and then D6L low,
low.
D3 of course. Uh,
I don't think there's any D3. I think all weapons do a D6.
well,
That,
hand to hand is D3.
right, right. Okay, yeah, fair enough. Which is ostensibly just a D6
Yeah.
divided in half. But yeah, all weapons just do D6. Some weapons do D6 high, which means you roll 3D6 and take the two highest, or D6 low, and that means you roll 3D6 and take or 2D6 and
Mm.
2D6 in both circumstances, and take either the high or the low. So like smaller weapons like daggers and stuff that are easily concealed and easily kind of like fucking stick people with, but they're not as so. I part of me resisted the whole notion of like every weapon doing the same,
Mm,
but I don't really think it matters that much for the
it
purposes
doesn't.
of the game. And
No.
it's so yeah, I mean there's a lot of things I like about the game, and like the more I read about it, I'm like, this really kind of encapsulates. It's part of the reason like Cody was asking me about like, oh, your game. I'm like, you know what? I think I can like, I think this kind of gets there. The Mythic Edition
Mhm.
kind of gets to where I want it to be, and it is really the kind of sword and sorcery game that I'm more interested in playing.
All right, last couple that I want to know about because I didn't look into these. Hero points I do know.
hmm
Um, Fate. What is Fate?
Fates for sorcerers and
Oh,
priests.
okay.
So we will not be using any of that
And I'm
because
guessing Arcane is much like that as well.
yep,
Nope.
hero points. Hero points are used basically the same way that we use them in the house rule in our D&D game. You can
Mm.
have a reroll, you can have a twist of fate, which allows you to kind of detail something that hasn't previously been detailed in the description. You can have turn normal roll into a mighty roll, or a mighty roll into a legendary roll, or heroic roll, triumphant success. I don't know, it's like two tiers of superlative things. And then
I did want to
yeah, there's
bring
a
that up. Now that you've said it, um, Mighty Roll, and there was another one as well that I heard today, and I want to ask you about those. What is
yeah,
a
it's I
Mighty
forget
Roll?
what they're called. It's like mighty roll, and I want to say like legendary roll or
Yeah, because I thought it
something.
was something like Legendary Roll.
So basically, there's just um two tiers of the superlative results. And so a mighty roll just allows you to add more damage. And one of the things that I like about it too is that if you're fighting rabble, then the mighty roll damage is just how many of them you dispatch with. You can just dispatch with, if you roll 8 damage or whatever, then that's just how many of the rabble you dispatch with. It's kind of what I was talking about previously with the more of a horde mechanic. So they have some of that in there.
Mm.
And so, but then there's like a tier above that it's like if you roll a mighty roll normally, which is like a natural 12, and that natural 12 can be on a reroll that you took from a hero point, by the way. So like if you re-rolled something that you did poorly on, let's say you failed on a roll, and you're like, I want to spend a hero point to re-roll, then you get a mighty roll, a natural 12, then you can spend another hero point to bump it up to like a legendary or whatever. But what you can't do is spend a hero point to bump a regular roll to a mighty roll, and then spend another hero point to bump it from hero, a mighty roll to a legendary roll. You
Ah,
cannot
okay.
do that. That's a non-starter. But so yeah, basically it just causes, you know, it's just like crit crit damage basically. So it just makes
Okay.
it more likely that you do. I think it's like an extra d6 or an extra 2d6 depending, and then if the horde rules apply, then you can dispatch with tons of rabble, I think.
Mm.
So that's kind of a cool mechanic. I like the twist of fate mechanic. I like there's a couple of other uses, like one where it's like if you're dying, you can use it to regain life's blood or whatever, which is what they call hit points in
Mm.
Barbarians of Limura. And so that's cool. I forget what the other use of it is. There's like 5 or 6 uses of the hero points, and they're kind of in line with what we use them, the fate points in our game for now.
Yeah, so far from what I've read, uh, I'm really liking it. I like where
hmm
it's going um for a somewhat rules light, Fast and Furious style game. Again, I like fixed target numbers.
hmm
It seems that 9 is kind of like the number to hit every single time. It doesn't change very much. The thing that you change is if you have pretty much advantage or disadvantage.
Yep.
I also wanted to bring up the YouTube channel that I was watching this morning was Dungeon Musings, actual play Barbarians of Lemura RPG, quote Death Gods of Thule, end quote. If anyone
Mm.
out there wants to check it out, uh, the cast they're playing it on Roll 20, and this is the other thing I found, and even David said this yesterday about this game. They don't use a grid for combat at all. The only thing that they use in Roll 20, other than their character sheets and rolls, is the GM uses it to throw up just visuals that he
Mm-hmm.
needs, like maps of towns, or he had like you know, none of the characters are seem to be, at least from what I overheard, there wasn't a lot of combat in the actual play.
Yeah.
None of them seem to be spellcasters. Maybe one of them is a sage, but that's as close as they get to spellcasting.
Yeah.
Or
I'm not into it.
he might have levels in sage. But only the creatures that they fought were the only like supernatural things that they ever found, and
Yeah.
except for the sage character ran into another NPC that was an eldritch horror, but it wasn't an antagonist. It was just this. It was called the Watcher, and this
Yeah.
is kind of like a this is a trope in Sword and Sorcery. I know this because uh, the supernatural creatures are supposed to be kind of uh they're not always supposed to be just evil things. They are these creatures out there that could be not exactly on your side. They are usually mediators or neutral parties that are there to give information. And he did a fantastic job. I highly suggest, if you guys want to know about this game, go and watch their channel. He did a bang up job, really bringing in the Eldritch Horror and the Sword and Sorcery into it. He's a big fan of Sword and Sorcery as well as H.P. Lovecraft, and he melds them together perfectly.
Yeah. There's a decent amount to like. Again, I don't know that it's rules light. It feels like the good balance for the genre.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get in the weeds about the alchemy or the sorcery or whatever. I'm like, okay, I don't really need that element.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm probably gonna hand you guys some pre-gens that I have an idea for, but yeah,
Ooh, I got an idea for like a Lancer character, a dude that's all about the lance. So I might
I
stick with that.
well, and I like too the way they don't call it initiative, they call it priority.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of cool. It's like you roll, and then it's like the way it goes is any heroes that get legendary successes go first.
Mm-hmm.
And then any heroes that get mighty successes, they go. Then there's just heroes that get a normal success, which they hit the target number 9, but they didn't get a mighty or a legendary success. Then the villains, there's 3 categories of enemies:
Mm-hmm.
villains, toughs, and rabble. So then villains go, then toughs go, then any heroes that have failures, they didn't get a success on their priority roll, then rabble, and then any heroes that got a what you call a calamitous failure or a botch, they go
Yeah.
last. And that's just the order of like the round, and you're falling into those categories. I think it makes it a lot neater than it would otherwise be.
Nice. All right. Well, guess what, folks out there? Get ready for us to talk about that after what do we got in 3 weeks? 2, 3 weeks that we're gonna start that game.
I'm I'm thinking that we're gonna finish up the thing with where Beto is gonna exit the game more
Mm.
organically next session or possibly the session after that. So,
Mm.
and I don't want there to be a gap, so I'll start working on, and especially because I don't have to build maps and shit, I'll just like start working
Yeah.
on the Barbarians of Lemura. I already built a couple of the characters. I wanted there to be, so there's 3 of you, and so I was like, okay, I'll give you like 5 character options, right, for
Mm.
the 3 of you, and you can choose among those character options, and then give you the pre-gens, and then just have a small scenario that maybe we can run through in 3 or 4 sessions or 5 or 6 sessions and see how it goes. I'm pretty excited if everybody is kind of into the concept, then it'll be a nice departure from D&D as much as I love that aging horror. It's sometimes a cute young fancy catches my eye
Yep.
and
It's just it. That red dress, man. It'll get you every time.
exactly.
All right. We have an email from our number one fan, Rebecca. Uh, she wrote in with the subject, Rebecca needs help. So,
We got you, girl.
oh, as always, hey boys,
Hey.
it finally happened. Last time I wrote to you, I told you that I started teaching at a new school and would start a gaming club like I always have at any school I taught at. So here's the question. I have a young lady that will be playing a Fey Patron Warlock. Yep, the kids only wanted to play D&D 5e. Shrugging emoji. But the conundrum for me is I've never GM'd for a Warlock player, played a 5e Warlock, or even looked at the class since it came out in 2014. So here I am again asking for your help. What are some things I should do to make this Warlock come alive? This is the player's first character, and she is very interested in the relationship with her patron. Thanks for all the advice, Rebecca.
Yeah. I mean, you did a pretty good job with the shirt version. Um, by the way, for those of you that don't know, the shirt version is the version of something that fits on the
On a
back of a
shirt.
shirt, easily described. Not to be confused with the short version. That's what a normal person
Which
would
is usually
think.
a sentence or two.
Right, right. A normal person, when they read shirt version, they would think to themselves, oh, Matt made a typo, and what he means is short version. But because my brain is a maniac brain, I'm like, oh, shirt version. Yeah, that makes sense. It would fit on a
Yeah,
shirt.
it
That's
fits on a shirt.
totally legitimate. So hopefully this isn't outdated at this point. I feel like we got this email a couple weeks back, and we were preoccupied with other shit. So apologies,
Mm,
Rebecca, if this is later than
sent
you.
to us 8 days ago.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
So hopefully her
yeah.
game hasn't. Okay, yeah, maybe not 2 weeks ago, but either way, the key to the Warlock class is to lean into the relationship with the patron, and
Yeah.
that it means that the player has some sort of kind of dark side. And the cool thing about that is it means that there is some sort of inner conflict that they're struggling with.
Hmm.
And that is interesting. So the more you can inject moments where the patron is involved in the player's adventuring career, either ushering them toward a specific path, providing insight, or perhaps trying to kind of like poison their thinking. That's all really interesting stuff because all of the patrons, and I might be wrong if they've introduced new ones in recent years, but all of
Oh,
the
there's so
patrons are
many now. There's a
right,
lot.
but they're all very powerful, and it's a pact that you're making with a powerful being that you
Hmm.
probably otherwise would be against your moral compass in some way. And that's interesting in that capacity. So try to think through when there are times where you can inject that into the game in a way that seems organic and doesn't detract from the overall narrative. In other words, it's probably wise to be giving your character, the warlock character, like side quests and shit that involve
Hmm.
its patron, right? That this is a bargain that the patron is asking for something from the player, from the character. And the more you can kind of inject that, then you give the player a sense of kind of a goal that they're pursuing independent of the adventure. Although ideally it should be something that is like orthogonal to the adventure, right? The patron is supposedly very powerful, presumably is kind of aware of the machinations of the party and everything, and it knows, hey, you're going to X place and you're going to be doing X thing with the party.
Mm.
What I need from you is to get Y thing while you're there. And if you can make that some way um, counter indicated to what the party's goals are, then you'll create some sort of tension, and then it'll be more interesting. So I don't know. You got anything to piggyback on that first point there, man? I
I
have some other
wanted to
points,
add
but
onto this some things that I like when because I used to play a lot of warlocks.
hmm
Warlock is one of my favorite classes in D&D
hmm
ever since third edition. Third edition, fourth edition, and fifth edition. I've always loved warlocks. I bet Dave remembers when fifth edition was first coming out. We were playing in the beta test games, and they didn't
it was
have the
D&D
warlock yet.
next back then.
Yeah, back when it was going to be D&D next, and I was uh, and the warlock wasn't out for it yet. But they had a UA for it, an unearthed arcana for it, and David wouldn't let me play it. He's like, nope, we got the beta test. You're going to do that. If you wanted to play a spellcaster, there's the wizard, yada yada yada. Uh,
See, I thought the Warlock was a part. No, you're
no,
right.
that
The first
right.
expansion they did it. You're right.
And as well as when the SRD first came out, the warlock didn't come out until a little bit later with the SRD. You had to get the player's handbook if you wanted to play warlock.
Really?
But I
Okay.
couldn't wait for it. I was kind of a bitch about it. I was just like, oh, I want to play a warlock. I want it. And sure enough, as soon as the player's handbook came out, I went and bought it. My character that I was playing at the time, Anduin, uh, we kind of just we worked some shit out. He was just like, oh yeah, he's a warlock now because Matt's not going to stop bitching until he can play a warlock. Uh, I love warlocks. I love the idea of the warlock. I love the lore of warlocks because I like the idea of these people that they make a bargain, selling a part of their soul or possibly telling that they'll do a favor in order for such power from these beings that have so much power that you can only cast a spell so many times before you have to take a short rest, not a long rest like everybody else. Like they can cast a bunch of spells before they're just like, man, I need to take a rest. This is gonna, that was exhausting. You cast two spells and you need at least a short rest because the power that you are holding is so powerful that you have to take a breather at some point in order to get some of it back, let alone the invocations you get, where you get big time spells that you can cast for free whenever the fuck you want. You want to be able to change your face whenever you want? Play a warlock. You want to be able to fly whenever you want? Play a warlock. They're pretty fucking awesome, and you can make them however you want. If you want to play a stealthy character, you want to play a melee character, you want to play a straight spellcaster, you want to play a pet caster character, you want to play a healer, play a warlock. They can do it all. And one of the best things about it is being able to create that story, that bond between you and your patron. What is it that you promise them that gives you this incredible power? Uh, and I do love. I've done it a few times with warlock players where I've actually written out the contract between the patron and the warlock themselves and given it to them to make sure that they realize this is what is going to happen, and if you don't follow these rules, this is what's going to happen. You're going to lose your power. Uh, and in reality, mechanics wise, all it was if you break this pact, you can no longer gain levels in warlock. That's all it
hmm
was. You still, keep all your spells and all that shit, but you can't gain levels. Uh, I want to talk about Beto's warlock in Curse of Strahd because when you told me about that, when I came and visited you in California, and I was just joining the game, this was when you kind of merged us. It was Mikey, Beto, and then me, Cody, Sean, and Patrick, and you were bringing everybody together uh, into the Curse of Strahd campaign. And you're kind of like, hey, from one DM to another, I'm going to tell you what's going on, and I know you'll be cool with it. And I was like, fuck yeah, I will be. Because when you told me, I was like, damn, that's really fucking cool. And I'm glad you told me because I think that's awesome. I want you to tell a little bit of the story of Beto's Warlock in the Curse of Strahd campaign because it was fucking badass.
Yeah. So that was what Beto's character in our Curse of Strahd campaign had pact with Orcus. He's a demon lord or whatever. And this illustrates the advice that I was giving to Rebecca, which is I tried to be thoughtful about giving Beto's character these side quests and these things that were the stakes were increasing in intensity as he went on. So, like in the first adventure that we had, I don't think Matt was around for it,
Mhm.
but it was just a matter of like the party was going into some temple and there was some tome of lore that Orcus wanted. And so he needed to recover that. Then there was, I'm trying to remember, there was an interim. Fucking, I'm drawing a blank on what the second task was. But it was like he needed to do something that kind of like slightly made him suspicious of that made the party suspicious of him. It wasn't directly like undermining the party's goals, but it also wasn't helping them either. And he needed to be a little shifty about it. And I'm drawing a blank on the second one, but then the third one came along and it was like the party was seeking out the Sunblade, and the Sunblade is this very powerful artifact. It's basically like a lightsaber. It's basically like a
Mhm.
radiant lightsaber that, when wielded by someone, allows you to cause great damage to vampires and everything. And because Orcus is the demon lord of the undead, he wanted to secure this for to kind of keep it away from harming his minions. And so that culminated in Beto's character being told by Orcus that he needs to kind of get the Sunblade and turn it over to the emissary of Orcus. And then this culminated with Patrick's character, who was the paladin who would normally be wielding said Sunblade, of like chasing him down. And there was this big kerfuffle and confrontation. And it was all really good. And then he, because he failed to do that, there were consequences, which is his bargain with Orcus was dissolved, which meant he could no longer gain levels in Warlock. And it also meant that his soul was owned by Orcus, which meant that if he were to die, suffer the final death, that he could not be resurrected because Orcus, his soul would not be a willing would not be willing to return to the material plane because Orcus would have a grasp on it. So there were some consequences, and that culminated when we got to a final leg of the adventure in the Amber Temple of his quest for immortality, and other kind of external things. But I wish I could really remember. Do you, Matt? Do you remember what the second thing was? It happened while you were playing with us, but the first thing was just like recover this tome, and then there was a second thing, and then there was the Sunblade thing. And I don't
No,
remember
all
what
I
the second
remember is
thing.
the Sunblade thing. That's all I remember.
But it illustrates well kind of what I was getting at is, despite Matt's gushing for the Warlock
Hmm.
class, generally speaking, the Warlock class for an entry level player or for a not terribly thoughtful player is kind of a garbage class. It really is. You need to be very thoughtful about the way you build that class, because you need to be thinking about every invocation, every spell that you choose to take. Yes, it's a big benefit that you get spell slots back at a short rest instead of a long rest, but that also needs you to requires you to be more thoughtful about what it is that you're building the character toward.
Hmm.
Because you can't really think about it like a full spellcaster, because the warlock isn't really a full
No,
spellcaster,
it is
but
not.
but nor is it like a full melee class.
Nope.
Or it's like you can use medium armor and then you have like some range capabilities, and it's like, so you need to kind of establish a path. If you try to be a utility character with a warlock, your warlock will fucking suck. You need to be a highly specialized, narrow band of specialty that you do specific things with specific spells at specific times and leverage your invocations. If the player that you have is not thinking about it in terms like that, try to impart that on. It sounds like her. It sounds like
Hmm.
it's a her.
Yep. Yeah.
Impart that onto her that you need to establish a character concept. It's the warlock is basically the anti-bard. The bard is a jack of all trades, and the bard can do a little bit of everything. The bard has a little bit of magic that's controller magic. It has a little bit of magic that's range striker magic. It has a little bit of melee capabilities. It has a little bit of support capabilities where you can heal and bolster allies. You're a controller. I mean, they're never really like a tank, but they're like a little bit of a striker, a little bit of a controller, a little bit of a
Hmm.
support character, and a little bit of melee, a little bit of range, a little bit of spell casting, a little bit of mid range, and so it's like all over the place. Like the bard is a great utility, all purpose thing. The warlock is not that. The warlock is like thematically cool, storytelling wise. If there's a cool concept there, and I suspect that's what draws people to it. Is there's this kind of cool narrative where
And
it's
it is kind of a Swiss Army knife, though. Because the warlock can be used in any, if you choose the right invocations, and depending on your pact, uh, you can go many ways. See, the bard,
no,
you
you
have a
can
lot.
go many ways,
Yeah.
but you can't be all things.
Right.
Unlike a
Exactly. I
bard
was gonna
that
say
can
a
be
bard can be
you
many things at once. Where
it can be many things at once.
yeah,
A warlock cannot. A
yeah,
warlock can go any number of ways, but once you go that way, you need to decide
you're right.
on
Yep.
going that way. And so that's the decision that needs to be made is what are you doing, right? Like
Mhm.
I have a warlock in my group now. My cousin Cody plays him, and he's like, okay, yeah, I'm a melee
Mhm.
striker warlock, and most of his things and his capabilities are geared toward that role. The more you spread yourself out thin, unlike the bard actually becomes more powerful the more you spread yourself out.
Yeah.
Like the more
Hmm.
you become a utility character, I mean, you can have a narrowly focused bard that's just support, or a narrowly focused bard that's like controllery, or even strikery. But part of your utility lies in the fact that you have something for every occasion. The warlock does not have something for every occasion. He has
Right.
something for a very niche set of occasions, and when
Hmm.
he has it in fucking spades.
Right. Very well. Yeah.
Right. And then there's the thematic texture that goes along with it, which, because of the narrow parameters that you have in a mechanical sense, it provides a little bit of like role playing shit. So you need to try to leverage both of those. Give the character an understanding of what the mechanical limitations are on their character, and then let them know like there's some narrative opportunities here too. And if they're not keen on that, then they need to like lean into one or the other. Ideally, they would lean into both, in hopes of fleshing out a character that has like some narrative texture, but a very well defined role in the group.
All right. So, David, I want to throw to you some questions that
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten from other people that play warlocks. Because I've come across people that just started playing warlocks for the first time, and they have many questions about this class because of the the
Enigmatic.
yes, uh, parts of the class, like how much should I be able to converse with my patron?
That's a good question.
That's a very good question.
Yeah, it probably depends on how prominent you want the patron's influence to be in the
Mm,
adventure. I would posit that it should the more you have the PC conversing with the patron, the less mystique that's around them. But pull back too much, and then they just don't really feel like they're even a presence. So I would say whatever balance allows you to keep your thumb on the pulse of the PC and their motivations and their character drive, without removing the mystique. And that's going to
Mm,
vary from character to character. Um, think about it this way: when the PC interacts with their patron, it ought to be an event. It ought to be a thing
yeah.
that like gets their attention in some way because the patron is deigning to converse with them. And there's a huge power disparity there. So it would be like, how frequently do you interact with the CEO of your company? Probably not super frequently, but a warlock, and again, I don't understand warlock. Warlock is a verb, by the way, D
Yeah.
and D. I don't understand it. Warlock is like a verb. It's not a noun.
Uh, it's a male witch.
No, no, it's not. No, no. A male witch is a witch. Warlock is a verb. It's something you do to another person. You warlock them, like you curse them. It this whole narrative that like a male witch is a warlock is no, witch is not gender specific.
Okay.
Witches are men and women alike. Anyway, but admittedly, warlock does sound cooler than witch. So
Yeah.
it sounds a lot better. Um, but a warlock is probably somewhere like senior management, right? They're senior management. They don't have a C in their name. They're not the chief
Yeah.
marketing officer. They're
Right.
not the
No
the chief.
CFO, COO,
Yeah, yeah, they're not. But like they're probably like
CUM. Yeah. Okay.
they're senior management. So it's like occasionally they're gonna rub elbows with the CEO and the CMO or whatever.
Mm.
And if you think about it in those terms, like a warlock is that, and how frequently would a senior manager rub elbows with a CEO? That's how much you would want your patron being involved
Mm.
in the operations of what a warlock does, especially as they
Or
gain levels. As they get to levels 1 to 5, very rarely, once or twice in levels 1 to 5, maybe 3 times levels 1 to 5 if you're a little stingy with the experience points or the milestones. Levels 6 to 10, more like 4 or 5 times. And then as you gain levels, it probably will become more common or
mm.
at the very least more impactful. You don't need to increase the iterations of the patron being involved so much as you might likely need to increase the impact of each interaction where it's
Mm.
like they're getting a thing from the patron that is much more significant.
Or you can work it how David has recently in our game. How he was talking about Cody is a hexblade warlock, where a
Hmm.
hexblade warlock, their patron is their weapon.
Hmm.
Uh, and the beauty of it is that Cody in our game, his blade is the soul of his wife.
Hmm.
Uh, and that is his patron, which gives him the power that he has. You know, he always likes to joke of it is the power of love that
Yeah.
makes him continue on. Uh, but one thing that I really like that David did with this version, and I never thought of this. I don't know why I never thought of this because it's a great fucking idea. Is that Cody talks to his fucking sword all the time. He talks to his, to his wife all the time, and David never says that she ever answers or anything. It's just kind of like Cody just always says, oh, I talked to Katya, blah blah blah, this and that. But then one day David said that Katya answers and says this, and not only you, but the entire party hears her voice. And I thought that was so cool. I was like, damn, that's a really good kind of like thing to bring into the story that she is not only his patron, not only his weapon, but she's kind of a part of the party and a part of this whole story. And as the party has come together to form this union, we get to start hearing her voice. And I think we've only heard it once, maybe we've heard it twice, but I
No,
do know that you
just the
make it.
once. It was one of his fate point scenarios last, and I was
Ah,
like, "What a good fate point scenario, man!
oh,
That's
was it
fucking
really? It
cool."
was one of his fate point
It was
scenarios.
one of his
Oh,
fate
okay.
points that other members of the party hear Katya's voice. I was like, "Wow, that's a cool fate point thing. I want to incorporate that
Oh,
if I can."
damn, that was so fucking good that we all got to hear it. And I remember even fucking Patrick, who is he's not exactly a dude that is just like I have feelings, but he was
No,
just like, oh yeah, that was pretty fucking badass. That's kind of cool.
it was
Like,
pretty crazy.
damn, that made me actually feel something for a minute. Like, damn, all right, man, you made Patrick feel something. That's pretty awesome.
Mm,
That is one thing that I really enjoy about bringing in stuff with the Warlock because there's an outside force that
hmm.
could at any moment come in and just kind of like move into the party and take over. Uh, and at some point, just pretty much think about it with like our Curse of Strahd game. If Orcus brought like a herald into us, which goddamn it, it might have well have been the Quasit, because Beto was a Pact of the Chain warlock. He had a Quasit familiar that was always just like the master doesn't is not he's not away, he doesn't like this shit, you're fucking up, dude, you
Yeah,
gotta make it better.
it was like the voice of
Yeah.
I would say try to think through. It sounds like Rebecca's characters. Oh, Matt's coughing. He probably has AIDS. Um, Rebecca's player has a character that's playing an archfey patron.
Mm.
So try to think of the ways in which the archfey patron is unique, and in how can you leverage and incorporate those aspects? Because um, I've never played some. I've never had a character that played a archfey patron. The previous one was a fiend patron. It was like a demon, and then this one is a. I don't remember what was your patron, Matt, when you were a warlock. I don't remember.
Old one, great old one.
The great old ones, right? I probably didn't do very good at leveraging that, like in the early days when we were still playing fifth
I
edition.
don't know because you played up on the madness and the mind altering part of it pretty
A
well.
little bit. I remember doing that a little bit, but your patron probably didn't have much of a presence in the
New
campaign because I was like, the great old ones would be kind of distant and occult.
Yeah.
And I probably could have done a better job about incorporating that. But try to think of the things that make whatever type of patron unique. And what makes them unique will probably determine how its goals and desires manifest. Try to think of it in terms of the patron's relationship with the player is that it is empowering the player with skills to get some things that it wants.
Mm.
And so that's a give and take, right? The player gets powers, but it also needs to deliver on some things. And some of the times, those things are going to be clandestine things, things that might need to be hidden from the greater party. And this is what gives the warlock some complexity and some layering to their character because they can't be totally forthright with what it is they're pursuing. Because if they do, then it would just be like, oh, like you're aligned with some sort of evil creature, right? This is what happened in my campaign where it was like Patrick's character was a very clear cut kind of railroaded thinking of morality. He was like, "Oh, this is evil and this is good, and I am paladin and I am good, and you're aligned with a demon god,
Mm-hmm.
like there's a demon lord. That's evil. You're evil. I will kill you now." It's like he's like, "No, no, no," but it's like it's more complicated than that. And he's like, "No, it's not. I will kill you. Yeah, I will kill you." And then till Matt's character was like, "Hey, maybe let's not go killing members of our party. We need everyone we need to survive." And he was like, "All right, fair enough. I won't kill him just yet, but if he steps out of line even a little bit, I will
Mm-hmm.
kill him. I will fucking kill him. I got the fucking sunblade. He tried to steal from me. I got this lightsaber. I'm gonna cut him up into a ton of pieces." And so that creates some sort of inter-party conflict. And as long as that doesn't rise to the level of distracting from the overall plot of your game, it's a nice little simmer to have in the background where total party harmony is often really boring unless the plot is super layered.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're anything like me, you're not great at creating super layered plots. You have like one major plot thread with maybe a background theme with some characters that are complications, but you're just trying to kind of get through the major plot beats with the major complications and not really concerned with it being too morally nuanced. But if the players can introduce some of that on their own accord by just you sowing some seeds of dissent by having competing goods bubble to the surface, then if you're doing that, you're leveraging what the warlock is supposed to be all about, provided the player is building the character in a way that is more deliberate. There's nothing more boring than a character that has a rich backstory, a rich complexity, but like mechanically is just totally flat and boring and uninteresting that can really sap the energy. So try to make sure that your player knows that they need to be building deliberately from a narrative standpoint and a mechanical standpoint. And this is the reason that I say that the Warlock is not for new players. It really isn't. It's for people that have kind of want to take their game to the next level and can leverage the aspects of that class that are most interesting narratively and mechanically. It can be done if you are careful to kind of hold your player's hand through it and
Mm.
let them know that each little decision that they make in a narrative and mechanical standpoint is going to affect what their character is about. Then it can be done effectively. So hopefully that's all helpful to Rebecca.
I want to bring up because she went with the Fey patron,
Patron.
um, patron.
Patron.
Uh, the Fey patron is it's fun because of how fucked up they can be. Mechanically, they suck because the Fey patron is the most shitty mechanic patron that you can get as a warlock. But Rebecca, I know that if I remember right, I might be drunk, uh, or I might have been drunk back then when I thought you said that you've played White Wolf games. But I swear you said that you've played White Wolf games in the past. Check out Changeling
Everything
the.
she's ever done has happened in the past, Matt.
Well, I know, but shut up. Fuck you. I know what I'm doing here.
Hmm.
Check out Changeling the Lost. Uh,
Don't do that. It's a terrible
no.
game.
Oh no no
Don't
no.
do it.
Changeling,
No, no,
Changeling
it's
the
terrible.
Dreaming,
No, oh, it's terrible.
Changeling the Dreaming, bad game. Changeling the Lost, fantastic. If you read that, it really emphasizes how the horror and the horrible things that the Fae do. If you read through that book, the whole book is about playing a character that was stolen by the Fae and turned into an object at some point. It could have been a chessboard, a lamp, a footstool, or even just a doll that they would go to sleep with. Uh, but it is a horror game where the Fae are these horrible, ultra powerful creatures that mold you and manipulate you and make you this thing that they want, and then you escape. It's a great game for a Fey warlock because I like to think that the Fey in D&D are around that same thing. They're not. They're supposed to be neutral when it comes to alignment, but I like to think that the Fae, like the High Fae, are these like ultra powerful, like super evil creatures. But they just don't know it. They don't really come across as I am an evil person. They're just so neutral that they do evil things, and they're just like, "What do you mean? It's just what we do." So bring that in. Bring that fucked up part in at some point. At the beginning of the Warlocks, joining with this patron, it can be all butterflies and rainbows. But then as they get into levels, they realize that their patron is this sick, sadistic, very power hungry being that they are working with, and now perhaps they got to work on towards the end of the campaign to get out of their contract. It makes it really exciting. So that's my last bit of advice.
It's, I mean, that's a pretty good, astute observation about what makes the Fey patron. Because, yeah, mechanically, if I recall, it's not all that great.
No,
Depending on
certainly.
what kind of warlock you want to build, maybe if you're going for a more atypical build, but an optimized build doesn't use the Fey Patron.
No.
But one of the interesting things about the Fey Patron is it isn't so obvious like it is with the Fiend or the Great Old Ones or some the even the Genie or Jinn
Mm,
Patron.
Jen.
It isn't so obvious that they're like a like a evil character, right? Like a Fey might not necessarily be an evil patron, but that understanding of peeling the onion and unraveling their motives can be interesting from a role playing
Mm-hmm.
standpoint, especially because the more nuanced aspects of a creature that's that powerful because yeah, I mean why would something that's super powerful and omnipotent adhere to the same moral compass that mere mortals do? They likely would not. They likely wouldn't even be concerned with whether they were benevolent or malevolent.
Right. You got to
They were
think
just
of beings that have, they are not gods, but they have almost godlike powers. And if that
yeah.
was you, think of what you would turn into.
Yeah, and it's like I don't know that it's necessarily as obvious as like it's corrupt and evil and malevolent, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just like detached. And that's probably more, there is some more interesting role playing elements there. So, for whatever it's lacking in the mechanical aspects, which, to be clear, it is lacking in some mechanical aspects. The Archfey is, from what I understand, people that like the Warlock say that's like the worst patron that you
It's
can
the
take.
yeah, is I think it's the least chosen of all of the patrons.
Yeah, but it does allow for more role playing
Mm-hmm.
aspects that might be a little more nuanced than what you're accustomed to. It's just that people that have a tendency to gravitate toward the warlock have a tendency to be more min maxy types and
Right.
want to go like, okay, if I can leverage the strengths of this class in a way that is beneficial, then I can make a kind of more super powerful character. But if your player is more in the like role playing aspect, then you can try to leverage it in some sort of ways that are more interesting. Another thing that I think is interesting is that you can, I mean, it's perfectly understandable to allow a warlock to break their pact with one otherworldly being and maybe even establish another pact and kind of change their subclass in a narrative sense or even multi-class in a narrative sense, because
Two
there's so
packs.
much.
What the fuck? No, dude. Really?
What?
I never even thought of that. I seriously, no joke, coming from the dude that loves warlocks, I never even thought of that. Like signing another pact with another entity.
Yeah, you break one pact and you
Oh,
go like, ah, like okay, maybe I get some skills up to a certain point of a subclass, but then I break my pact with the Archfey because it's not working out for me, and so I can't gain any more levels from them. But then I'm still a warlock, and I forge another pact with a
yeah.
fiend, and so then I get
Holy shit.
the fiend's level like 6 and 8 capabilities. Like narratively, that makes perfect
It
sense, and I see
does.
no reason
And you know what?
mechanically why
Mechanically, it still works
it does
because
still work.
you would just get the extra spells from your new patron that you could
Exactly.
choose from. You don't get any really extra anything else other than their expanded spell list.
Yeah, you just stop
Oh my god.
progression at
What the
one point
fuck?
and then pick up the progression at the next point when you establish a new patron, and you can handle it all
Dude,
narratively and it works fine.
the one time I ever thought of that back in, I bet you it was back in 2015 when it first came out, and I thought about it. I was like, no, that's gonna be too hard. There's gonna be something that's gonna gum up the works. No, it's actually really fucking easy.
It's pretty clean. Yeah,
Yeah,
if you do it because again, the warlock doesn't get overly complicated with tons of spell slots or tons of spell
yeah.
lists or whatever. It's just like pretty easy. You just kind of cut off one and start another. And if that works narratively for the character, then that's great. Or you can it again just a clean break we never got to this point in the Curse of Strahd, but Beto's character wasn't able to advance in Warlock
Yeah.
anymore, and so it was like, well, when you gain another level, like you need to decide. You can pick up some things from your fellow party mates, and advance in those classes if they're keen to teach you. Probably not Paladin because
No, I
Patrick's
was
character's
teaching.
not going to teach you shit, but
Yeah, I was teaching him in Bard.
yeah, and it was like, so he could do that, and I was like, or you can forge another pact with another otherworldly
Mhm.
being if that seems to be a thing that you want to do. And we won't mention what happened. TBK, as to why that didn't
I
happen, but
survived.
you did. That's true. You did survive. As long as you know how to love, you know you'll be alive.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
but yeah, hopefully all that is fairly useful to you, Rebecca. I'm not. Maybe we just rambled a bunch. Of, didn't really help
Oh,
you at
dude, we
all.
got all sorts of good shit out there. Fucking, if you don't like it, Rebecca, hold on. If you
If
don't
you
like it,
don't like it,
Rebecca,
Rebecca, just
fucking fuck you. I don't care anymore.
no.
That's
I
not true.
care.
I love you so
I
much.
care.
You're great.
Rebecca's lovable.
Keep listening. But that is going to bring us to the end of this episode. So all of you out there, tell us how do you Warlock? Send it to insidethegmstudio@gmail.com and let us know. Did we fuck up? Are we not warlocking correctly? Or you can always come down and watch us live every Sunday, 9 p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/InsideTheGMStudio. Come and talk to us in the chat and tell us that we're not warlocking correctly. But for this week, for Inside the GM Studio, I have been your host, Matt.
And I am David.
And a big warlock good night.